I believe watercolors are such an underrated medium, but to me they became a gateway to falling in love with art and finding confidence in myself to do something I never thought I could. It was the absence of structure which allowed me to explore and experience painting in the very beginning. Later on, I found out that the structure, while not obvious to me at the start, does actually exist. I like that watercolors don't require a lot of preparation, but rather readiness to participate in a sort of color play, allowing myself to make mistakes and simply see how the colors and water move together and what kind of patterns they create. They can be rather unforgiving for those of us seeking perfection or a step-by-step routine, but if you come to it with an open mind to possibility, all you need is a few colors, paper, water, and a brush, and you can paint anywhere you are. Hello, today I wanted to answer some of your art-related questions that you asked me under a few of my previous videos. Right now I wanted to talk about my art supplies, of which I have quite a lot. I must admit that some of them, probably half of them, were gifted to me, and I am very grateful for that. I was lucky to have my 30th birthday last year, and then for Christmas as well I received quite a few paint sets specifically. People sometimes ask me what sort of supplies you should start with, and I don't really think that there is much. I actually didn't buy many supplies in the very beginning myself, and there was still plenty. And of course, having better supplies, better quality, it does make it a bit more exciting, but at the same time, it's just a mental thing. It's not necessarily something that you need to better your skills. I guess I will start by showing you my watercolor paint sets. These two I bought for myself in the very beginning. This one here is a Winsor & Newton student grade watercolor set. I think this was 24 half pans. I actually have a brush in here which I was looking for, and a pencil. Great, now that I found them. This set has all of your basic colors. One of the things that I do think is great if you learn in the very beginning is how to create new colors by mixing the pigments. So perhaps I would get even less than this. Having said that, I still found it very useful and I still enjoyed using it, and I still use it quite often when I go and paint outside. Then the second watercolor set that I bought for myself was this one. It's Mei Liang. I hope I pronounced it correctly. It has even more colors. This also came with a brush and a few papers, and actually I don't use it as often. I don't know why. I should probably take it with me when I'm painting outside as well. And now to the sets that were gifted to me. It's called White Nights. I really like this one. This is a professional grade and the watercolors are quite thick and creamy. If I compare Winsor & Newton and Mei Liang watercolors, I think that the second one is slightly creamier than Winsor & Newton. This one is very, very creamy and pigmented and I really like it. Then I also have this little fun set by Rembrandt. It's a little travel set, but the watercolors themselves are very different to everything else that I used because they are granulated. When you put them on paper, the colors sort of separate, and I'll show you on this little paper, they create kind of granulated texture, which is really great for when you're painting nature, to be honest. And because I paint nature a lot, this is very useful. And then the very last one is this humongous set by Schminke. It is really great. It's not very portable, so I mostly use this one at home. So there we go. It's really, really big, and it came with this porcelain little palette as well, which is very handy. With all 5 palettes that I have, they actually have like 1 or 2 colors in each of them that are my absolute favorite, and I wish I could just combine each of those colors into one palette, which you can totally make yourself actually, because you can buy all of these in little tubes and then kind of create a palette. In terms of palettes that I use the most, I use student grade palettes for practice and for whenever I just want to mess around with whatever I'm painting. I also take them outside. And then the professional watercolors I use for pieces that I maybe plan to sell or display somewhere. The reason why watercolors have never really been considered the best medium, I guess, is because watercolors have a tendency to fade much more than, let's say, oils or acrylic paint, which I don't think ever fades really. So if you go to a museum and you see a watercolor painting, you will see that those paintings are more often faded. That's because the light fastness or resistance to light in watercolors hasn't been really great back then, and it isn't really nowadays. But with professional grade watercolors, what differentiates them is that they are made to last longer. There are also other ways nowadays to seal those paintings. So I saw some people seal them with wax, or there is also a special spray which you can put on top of your finished painting, and then as a result you can't really touch up that painting anymore because it's going to be sealed, but it's going to improve the light fastness and longevity of the painting overall. Some other quick things to mention: I use these pens. Sometimes I don't use them often, but whenever I want to paint something a bit more structured, maybe architectural paintings, some kind of a shop front or a cottage, I do use these pens. Then I also have this very ancient, I don't know when I bought this. I think I bought it as a gift for my husband many years ago, and he hasn't really used it that much. Yes, I'm talking to you if you're watching this. I think they're all mixed from random sets that I have no idea where I got them from. So yeah, sometimes I use this for sketching if I want to sketch before I paint anything. I have this little box with washi tapes, and then another last bit before I go to the most important bit are my brushes. I have a lot, but I only use maybe like 5 at most. So there are 2 brushes. I bought them in Italy and I absolutely love them. Then I use this brush by, it says JV brush. It's quite long, so sometimes it's quite convenient if I'm at home reaching for paint. These brushes, or this one in particular, is a really good versatile brush because it's kind of thicker, but also it has a very fine tip. So sometimes I just use this brush for everything, for fine lines, for thicker lines, for filling things up if I'm painting on a smaller paper. And then the very last thing I want to show you, and the most important thing in my opinion, is paper. I think watercolor paper is the biggest investment you're probably gonna make. I think you can have cheaper paints, but the paper has to be good quality. I have rather cheap cellulose paper, a slightly more expensive cellulose cotton mixed paper. I have 100% cotton paper, but so far I think that 100% cotton paper is a worthy investment, and it really is the best thing you can buy for watercolor. The best alternative for practice is a slightly cheaper mix of cotton and cellulose, and my favorite miniature journal, which I used throughout the first few months of my painting journey, was just 30% cotton and 70% cellulose, but that already made such a big difference. I really wouldn't recommend using pure cellulose. I personally think it's so tricky to work with. It just doesn't absorb the water as well as cotton does. Painting on cellulose isn't as nice and pleasant, and is also slightly infuriating, much more infuriating than on at least kind of cellulose cotton mixed paper. I will show you this one first. It is a pure cellulose cold pressed watercolor paper by Bockingford, and I don't like it. I don't recommend it, but you can try just to see what is the difference. The most expensive one is this one by Arches. Fine grain, cold pressed. I tend to gravitate towards cold pressed. 100% cotton paper. And this one is really, really, really lovely. Let me show you this thing here. So these are all of my A5 and A6 albums, which I really like. This one is a handmade 100% cotton 320 GSM watercolor paper, and I love it. It works very great with water absorption. I got it at a little art shop in London, and I use it quite often for paintings that I think would be nice to sell or display in their original form rather than prints. So this is my only 100, no, not only. So this is my 100% cotton watercolor sketchbook. I almost filled it up, so I'm a bit sad that I'm gonna run out of space very soon. The other 100% cotton sketchbook I have is this one. It's by Fabriano. It's not really a sketchbook, it's a block watercolor paper, so it's glued. Watercolor paper quite often requires stretching so that it doesn't warp. This one doesn't warp because it's already in a block, so it's already stretched. The rest are kind of cellulose watercolor sketchbooks. Then this is the one that I was talking about. I don't remember the brand. I will link it. I bought it on Amazon, and this one is cellulose and 30% cotton. I think it's really great for practice. I like the miniature size. This was my favorite thing to use during the first few months of practice, and I felt very safe with it because painting miniatures is so much easier and so much safer than painting bigger paintings. That's all about my watercolor supplies. It took me so much longer to talk about it than I anticipated, but I hope this was useful. Some of you have also asked me to share some artists that inspired me in the very beginning or whose tutorials I followed, and there are quite a few. Just so that I don't butcher their names, I'm gonna link all of them in the description. All those various supplies that I've accumulated over time aside, realistically, all you need is one set of watercolors, whatever is in your budget. 2 brushes, thick and thin, a mini journal, or a bigger journal if you're brave, a napkin, a jar with water. Most of the time I don't quite plan the paintings in advance. I take reference photos when I'm out and about and usually paint in freeform. One thing I am very not good at is sketching. I don't have patience for it, and I am usually too lazy and I don't really know how to do it well. I end up painting right away or drawing a very rough outline of what I'm about to do instead of planning things in advance. I mostly paint nature and recently started painting animals as well. I would usually draw an outline of an animal so that I remember roughly where it's supposed to be and don't accidentally paint over it. And of course, whenever it's architectural shots and they are more structured, I try to sketch those in advance as well. I honestly don't practice as often as I'd like to nowadays, as other work takes more of my time. What helps me is having a rough schedule for the week. I try to keep evenings or sometimes mornings for practice and schedule all the other work I have to do in a stricter manner. Everything that requires a deadline has a more definite outline in my day, but painting I keep open to inspiration. I get inspiration from nature, especially now in spring, and take many photos in my walks to then later use as references. Sometimes I also take inspiration from movies. I find it very difficult to limit my creativity to schedules, although at the same time it is also part of my personality to be constantly worried about outcomes or achievements. But with painting, I try to keep my mind always open. I think the most important part in being an artist is seeing, purposefully noticing something beautiful around you in each day. When your mind is so focused only on the outcome, seeing becomes more difficult. Sometimes I make mistakes. I don't paint as well as I'd like to. Some paintings I'm not very proud of at all, or I overthink sometimes, but I remind myself that the most important part is still seeing and noticing the beauty. Without it, there would be no inspiration. I believe another best way to get inspiration for painting is turning it into some kind of routine. It doesn't need to be a strict or boring routine, but if you can make it a habit and spend 10 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour on practice, you would gain inspiration simply by doing an action. Sometimes I struggle to just start, and especially if I've taken too long of a break, it becomes even more difficult to find ideas, get inspired and motivated. It becomes really difficult to simply start again. I have to be in that mindset continuously. Inspiration comes in the middle of a process. Sometimes I start completely not knowing what to do, and in the middle of it, I get more mental clarity than before I began. Do you need an art degree to become a full-time artist? I am by no means a full-time artist. If anything, I focus more of my time on YouTube and creating content and other kind of admin side of things. I will answer this question a little bit more broadly. Do you need a degree to work in a creative industry? And a very short answer is no. The only problem and the only fear I think that a lot of people have is that if they focus on getting a degree in something unrelated, that they might not have time and completely forget about their creative side. If that is a concern, if that is the danger for you, then probably just do a creative degree. I mean, it's not gonna do you any bad. And it is all to say that you don't need a degree to become a creative, but if you want to get one, get it. For example, for me, I have a degree in filmmaking. Did I need it to become a filmmaker? No. Nobody ever asked me for my degree. Did it enable me in some ways? Certainly yes, because when I applied to get my degree, I didn't know anything about filmmaking. You know how some people pick up a camera when they are still kids or teenagers and maybe their grandpa teaches them how to take photos. I didn't have that, so I came to get my degree with a completely clean slate. So for me personally, it was really useful in that sense. I learned how to hold the camera, I learned how to tell stories, I learned a lot of technical bits, and I also made some connections that then helped me to build a career in filmmaking. And the thing is, I met a lot of people in my course from other universities who actually knew all of those things for many, many years, who actually held a camera when they were still children, and they had so much more experience than I did. So I think getting a degree in a creative kind of industry is really great if you haven't had that starting point. But if you had that starting point, or if you actually know exactly what you want, there are so many resources now available online, and you can teach yourself literally anything without needing formal education. I think there are pros and cons in both, and I think it really is up to you to decide what you want, but you certainly don't need it. What you really need is a vision, desire, and the ability to put in that work and manage yourself and your own time as an individual. The last thing I want to address in this video, because I was asked this question multiple times, or sometimes it was presented to me more like a statement, but I really wanted to touch on this topic because I think it's really fascinating. Can you call yourself an artist if you've only been painting for a year? Does there need to be a set period of time until you can call yourself an artist? So let me look up how Oxford Dictionary defines the word artist. Artist is a person who creates paintings or drawings professionally or as a hobby. A person who practices or performs any of the creative arts, such as sculptor, filmmaker, actor, or dancer, or a person skilled at a particular task or occupation. To me, to live artistically means to create free of prejudice and to create for the love of process rather than any particular outcome. But in reality, any words you choose to use are only just that. They are words. We use them for communication and to understand each other. There is no rule, there is no set timing when you can become one or the other. Whatever words you choose to use, what matters is the action behind it and the essence. Let me give you a personal example, and it's actually funny because someone tried to use this particular example against my point without realizing that actually I have experience in both. So, I am a formally educated, classically trained pianist. I've spent years of my life learning how to play piano every single day, got a degree, and yet I never actually became a pianist or never became a musician because despite all of the effort and hours spent doing it, it never became my own inner essence. It didn't become something I strived to do, something that I fell head over heels in love with, and I couldn't wait every single day to sit down in front of piano. I never really did it for myself. I was good at performing the task. I was good at performing for exams, for teachers, and doing the thing that was needed from me. So yes, I have that experience. Yes, I put so much effort into it. I put years into it. Yet I can't call myself a pianist. And then let's go to art. I've been painting for a little bit over a year now. Yet I can confidently call myself an artist. I am not a professional artist, yet I do believe that I can call myself an artist indeed. Many of us would be afraid to use this word to describe ourselves because we feel like we need some sort of recognition to be anything. I am editing right now and I wanted to make another quick tiny little point here. I think a fallacy that a lot of us fall into is, well, with that logic, anyone who held a brush for a day can call themselves an artist. No, not really. That's not what I am talking about. As long as you continuously create and work on it and work on developing your skill, then you can call yourself an artist. You can be a beginner artist, but beginner is your level. The artist is still the word used there. Like, I sing in the shower every now and then, but I am not a singer. If I was developing that skill and singing, even if just for myself, not sharing it with anyone, but singing, constantly learning and putting time and effort specifically into it, then I could call myself a singer, but not in the shower. Or if I did pottery lessons for a few months, and I did actually pottery lessons for a year, I didn't become a potter. Is not something that I am continuously doing. I'm not producing work over time. I'm not developing my skill. So I can't call myself a potter. With art, I can call myself that because I'm continuously producing work and continuously putting effort into it. So take it as you will. I think what really matters aren't the years you've put into it, but the approach that you have towards it. I think the meaning of the word is in action and in the feeling, rather than in some kind of arbitrary metrics or numbers of years or judgment from other people. So there you go. I hope this video was interesting to you. I am, as always, open to conversation and open to whatever thoughts you have to express, whether you agree with me or disagree with me. I actually enjoy having those conversations with you. Feel free to comment below and let me know what you think. And I hope this video was to some extent useful to some of you. And I am also sorry about the ever-changing light, because today has been crazy. It's been sunny and raining all the time. So thank you for watching, and I will see you again in the next video.